Hello to all. Welcome to the channel Cloud Knowledge. Today in this video, we will study about parse transformation in mapping data flow activity of ADS. So for this purpose, let's first go to the official documentation page by Microsoft. So here is the page. It states that use the parse transformation to parse text columns in your data that are strings in document form. The current supported types of embedded documents that can be parsed are JSON, XML, and delimited text. So let's understand this through the sample datasets. Here is the input dataset, and this is the output dataset which we want in our result. So let's first study the input dataset. So input dataset here will be having these 5 columns. Here you can see the 3 columns are normal, but the 4th column here is pipe separated. So here you can see that it is Azure DevOps, pipe, GitHub, enterprise. Then in the second column, it is AWS code build, pipe, AWS code deploy, pipe, AWS code pipeline. Okay, so this column is having values which are pipe separated. Next column is having these JSON kind of values. Okay, so it is having another column which is having a value, then Vision AI, it is having another value. Okay, one more thing to notice here is very important, that in the cloud build there are only 2 values. Okay, pipe separated, but here in the second column it is having 3 values. This has to be kept in mind while configuring the settings in the parse transformation. Later on I'll tell you. So the output data set which we want here is in such a way that it will use to parse the text columns in your data. So we are having these text columns, okay, that are strings in document form. So we will parse these 2 columns, so that for this cloud build column, it will be subdivided into 3 different columns, like let's say cloud build 1, cloud build 2, and cloud build 3. So the first row for ID 1 Azure, it was having Azure DevOps, AWS enterprise, and the third build was not there. Okay, third value is not there, but for the second column we have 3 values, so we will create 3 columns. Okay, the maximum number of values which a column stores, that number of columns we have to create. Okay, so here we have AWS code build, code deploy, and code pipeline. So 3 are stored here, and for anyone which for any of the row which doesn't have value, for those extra columns it will have null. Okay, next comes this column, AIML column, where we have the 2 different values. Okay, so these values corresponds to one column as translation AI, Azure Translator, Vision AI, Azure Computer Vision. So here we'll make this as column name and we will store the values here. Similarly, another one is for Vision AI, it will store like this. So for both the rows, it will store the values by splitting them, by parsing them. So here is the output which we want, and this can be accomplished using parse transformation. So here we'll be going to convert or parse the text columns in our data that are strings in document form. So let's now demo this or accomplish this using Data Factory. So we'll first go to the author tab. We'll try to create the data flow. Let's create a new data flow. So name it as data flow for parse transformation. Okay, and then we have to connect to the source. So here you can see that the input data set is having these columns. We can either store it in a normal CSV, but in this case I have stored it into a SQL database. So let's go to the SQL database. So this is my Azure SQL database where I have created this query, create table. Okay, I have named this table as cloud providers. Here I have all those columns, ID, name, compute engine, cloud build, AML, those columns. Okay, and here first, after creating this table, I have now inserted the data. So you can see insert into this table these data. So this is having this pipe separated data and this JSON type data. Then after inserting that, if you query it, it will show you ID, name, compute engine, cloud build, okay, the pipe separated value, and this JSON value. So this is how it is built. Now this is our source. Okay, this is our source, that is the SQL database. So here in the ADF we'll connect to the source as we'll connect to the dataset which is inside our SQL database. Okay, so if you need this queries, let's say this creation of this table, then inserting the data, I'll post that in the description for you. So here we'll name the dataset as parse input data. Link service is already there in place for the SQL database. So in the table name, we will select that table. So the table name was cloud provider. Okay, let's go down, let's search for it. tbo.cloud providers. Okay, so here was the table. Now we will import the schema from that connection. So let it be clicked on and click OK. So we have clicked OK. Now we'll name the source as source for our parse transformation. Then we'll go to the data preview or into the projection first. So the projection is automatically displayed here, that ID is integer, is dollar in strings. Then in the data preview, we'll go and try to refresh to fetch the data which is coming from the source. Since the data flow debug option is already enabled, it will fetch us the data in some time. So here's the data: ID, name, compute engine, cloud build, and AIML. Okay, this is what was our input data set. So we have got this input data set in our source. Next comes parsing. Okay, so the very first thing is this column which is pipe separated. This one too we want to parse. So let's take the parse transformation which comes under the formatters section. Okay, formatters section after flatten, this is parse. So let's click on parse. Let's name it as parse data, and then first we'll be going to parse the column called cloud build which is pipe separated. So here in the format there are different settings. So after the incoming and the output stream we have this format. Okay, select the format of the embedded string. So for our first column it is delimited text, not the JSON. So we'll select delimited text, and then when you click on it, delimited text settings are enabled. So click on it and you'll see it will show first row is having header, column delimiter, all those things. Okay, so what we'll do here, we will select the column delimiter. So column delimiter in our case is pipe. So from the drop down you can see there are several delimiters, comma, semicolon, pipe, tab, etc. So we will select the pipe because in our case the data is divided on the basis of pipe. Okay, split it on the basis of pipe. So we selected pipe. Now comes the columns. So column here we'll select as cloud build. This was our column. Then the expression will be, click on the expression, and here in the expression we'll select the same column. Okay, cloud build as our column. And here this column is we can rename it also. Okay, let's say that it is cloud build, so cloud build name we can give. And this expression, this should be the column for which we are going to make the changes. And now this output column type, here we have to define the complex type. The complex type means where we want to split the value. Okay, so how we define the complex type is that we say that for our cloud build for this column we have 3 different values, 2 here and 3 here. So in total we will give 3. Okay, so it will be cloud build 1. So what the name of columns we want for this cloud build 1, which will be treated as string. Why string? Because it is having all string values. Okay, so it will be as string. Then cloud build 2 as string again. Then cloud build 3 as string. Okay, since it is having only string values, and 3 times we have given because in the second row we can see that it is having total 3 values. So this is done. Now click on save and finish. So we have defined the output column type. Okay, and here you can see that it is showing this complex type symbol. Since we have defined here in the parse settings this cloud build type, so it will show in the inspect column this cloud build name which we have defined as complex, and the columns here as string. Okay, so this is done. Now we'll go to the data preview. and we will refresh. So here we can see that cloud 1, cloud build 1, cloud build 2, cloud build 3 are now created and the values are stored. Here the alignment doesn't look very fine. So here at the top we have an option, export to CSV. We can preview the data, how it will look. So here comes the data. Let's extend it. So here we have those 3 columns, then we have those original columns and the columns we created. We created cloud build 1, cloud build 2 and cloud build 3. As I said, we will have these 2 values, and for this third one it is having null because in the original data set it is not having the third value, but for the second row it is having. So what happens is that for the second row it will show the value correctly, first, second, third. Okay, now we'll go back. We have accomplished the task of segregating or parsing the delimited text data. Okay, so this we have done using this parse transformation configuration settings over here. Okay, so here we can write the output stream name as parse data, which is delimited. Now this is done. Next comes the parsing of the next column. So we have the other column as this AIML column, which is in JSON. So we'll go back and we will add another parse transformation. Since in this transformation we have already defined the format as delimited, we cannot do it for JSON. Okay, we cannot change here. So it's better to take another parse transformation from here. Let's take it. Okay, and here in this case we'll name it as parse data JSON, and the incoming stream is this. Format this time will be JSON, and then here will be the JSON settings. In the earlier one it was having delimited settings. Here we have the JSON settings, and our document is a single document, so we'll select it as a single document. It is not document per line, it is having a single column, single value. Okay, then we have the same settings, columns. So here we'll select AIML data, then the expression. Here in this expression we select the column for which we are going to do the formatting. So it will be AIML, save and finish. This column type is here, we define the complex type. So we click on here and let's go back to the data set. It is like it is having 2 columns, translation AI which is having value, then vision AI which is having value. So we go back and we write as the column name translation AI as string. Here also it will be a string, having string values. Here also it is having string, so string values. Then comma vision AI as string. Done. So we have defined those 2 columns. We'll click on save and finish. So we have defined the complex type. Now if we go back to the inspect tab of this parse transformation, the second one for the JSON, here at the bottom we can see the AIML complex type defined by us. The name we have given is as AIML data, so it is shown here. The original AIML is here and the new one which we defined is here. Okay, so this is done. In the data preview, if we click on refresh, so here again the data is the alignment is not good for visibility, so we'll try to export it to CSV and we'll open. Let's extend it. So here we have those original columns, and the new columns which we created are here at the last, appended at the last. So it is cloud build 1, build 2, build 3, which is the delimited parse transformation output. The 2 new output which we have generated is translation AI and vision AI. Okay, so this is done by the JSON parsing. Now since in the output we are not interested to include these 2 extra columns which we have already parsed, so we'll do the settings in the sync level. So let's go back and now we will add our sync. So let's connect to the sync transformation. We'll name it as sync of our parse transformation. We'll connect to the dataset. This time we want the data to be loaded into the same database in the same schema. Okay, the SQL database, but so it will be parse output In the link service, we'll select the SQL database, which is already there. This time it will not be from the existing table. It will be a new table. So here it will be a new table. The schema will define inside DB only, and it will be parse cloud provider table parsed. Okay, so the cloud provider was the original table. We have given the name as cloud provider parsed output. Okay, so we'll click on OK. So this is done, and then we can go to the data preview. Errors. Okay, so it is saying that the complex structure should be written to these Snowflake, REST, ORC, JSON, Avro, or Cosmos DB. If that column is there, so either we can convert it to string or we can remove it. So in our case, we don't want these complex types because these two columns we are not needing in the output. We only want the parsed output. So for this purpose, what we'll do is that we'll go to the mapping set tab of the sync transformation, and we'll disable this auto mapping, so that it will enable this mapping where we can do it by ourselves. So ID, name, compute engine column, we'll leave it as is. Okay, ID, name, compute engine we leave as is, and the 3 plus 2 extra 5 columns we created we'll create here. So we don't want cloud build, we want cloud build 1 this time. Okay, so this will be cloud build 1, so we'll name here as cloud build 1. Next, we'll click on this plus sign to create a fixed mapping. So this time the fixed mapping will be cloud build 2. Okay, so the name is automatically selected as cloud build 2. Next, again we'll click on the fixed mapping, and we'll select from here cloud build 3. So it will be named as cloud build 3. The left side is the column which is coming from the source, and output is the one which we want to be displayed into the output. Then AIML, this column we don't want, we want the column AIML data which we created, and from this we want this translation AI. Okay, this column, and we'll name it as translation AI. So let's write it as translation AI. Next comes from here, we want the next column as vision AI. Okay, so here we'll name it as vision AI, and this is the extra one we don't want, so we delete it. So we have the first 3 columns, and the 3 columns from cloud build, which is 1, 2, 3. Okay, which is the delimited parsing, and the 2 columns from the JSON parsing. So this mapping we have done. Okay, now we'll go to the data preview. That error will not appear now because we have removed the complex data type. So let's refresh. Okay, so we can see the data here. The first 3 columns, then cloud build 1, 2, 3, translation AI, and vision AI. Okay, this looks fair. We'll go to the pipeline, and we'll create a new pipeline. This time we'll name it as pipeline for demo parsing. Okay, and we'll take the data flow. The data flow is parse transformation here, and then we'll publish the changes. Once the changes are published, perform the debug run. So the debug run here is in progress, it just completed. The output, we know that we have given the table name as, if we open here the connection, so the table is cloud provider parsed. We'll go to the SQL database here, and since we know this is the original table cloud provider which is having the unparsed data, so we'll now try to fetch the data from the new table, that is the target table. So let's copy this, we'll create a new query, and here we'll name the table as cloud provider parsed. Okay, so this is the new table where our data is present. So the first 3 columns, then the 3 delimited columns parsed, and the 2 columns of the JSON format which are parsed here as translation AI and vision AI. So the desired result we have got into the target table inside the SQL database. So this is having like all the 5 columns parsed. So if we go back to our sample dataset, we have got the same output as we have desired in here. So if you have any issue, any doubts in understanding the logic or the settings, do let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching the video. Happy learning to all. Have a blessed day. Bye.